Start with the introduction. All right, we are live now. All right. Hey everyone, good morning, good evening, good afternoon from wherever you are. So on behalf of Power BI Philippines Community Group, we welcome you all for attending this session today. So today we are going to introducing one of the speaker from directly from Spain. We would like to welcome Bernat on our show. Bernat is living in Spain and he's talk most about the DEX related concept. So first of all, Bernat, first of all, welcome you to our session. And as we know, Bernat is going to talk about Power BI calculation groups in today's session. So yeah, let's just connect to Bernat here and just had some words from him that what we are going to cover throughout the session and what are the key getaway from today's session. So Bernat, over to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for your time. I'm very looking forward to this session today. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen. So we'll cover a little bit of the theory of what it is and what is not a calculation group. And then we'll jump into a use case that is maybe the most standard one, but you'll see also how it works with a script that I wrote. So first things first, let me share my screen. Yes, how is it? Yes.
Prince, this is Prince. Actually, Bernat, I got a request. In the end, once you complete the session, just because it's more of an introduction and all this stuff, give an intermediate calculation, the one that you gave as use case at the Power BI conference in July. If you can show them a small use case for that, also people would want to see it again. So if you can give that, sure.
Yeah, don't worry. We will cover all the stages.
Thanks.
Okay, so let me see how this works. Okay, here's my presentation. Okay, can you hear it? Can you see it well?
Yeah? Yes.
Very good. So, well, just a short introduction. I'm a senior VI developer and partner at Esprina, this very small but high quality consultancy here based in Barcelona. We have large customers, even Nestle and stuff like this. And so I'm from Barcelona myself. So I've been around, but now I'm back in my hometown. I'm relatively new to Power BI, but I'm very passionate and I'm digging very deep into it. So maybe like 3 years or so. But I come from excellent Visual Basic for applications and not from a computer science, but rather engineering, just so that you know who I am. Now, we're here for this topic, right? What are calculation groups? So this is a very difficult thing. I mean, there's no standard definition, so I had to come up with some approaches. The very short one, it would be like the DAX expressions that replace the measures in the present in their scope. Okay, this is a bit confusing maybe for you. I found that I edited a longer one that Ken Snyder shown in Heavens BI YouTube channel. So it goes like this. It's a set of one or more DAX expressions called calculation items I added, represented as rows of a column that can be applied through the filter context of a report and have the default behavior of replacing any measure, I say value and format string, that exists in the filter context created by the calculation item. Okay, this also sounds a bit weird. I also thought of this other one, which might be helpful. In most use cases, you can think of a calculation group as a DAX jacket for your measure. No? Even, I would say a calculation group would be like a set of jackets, because you have to choose which one you will put to your measure. And you'll see why in a minute. So now that we know a little bit more what they are, it's like, why do we need them? Why we should do that? So mostly the biggest use case that people talk about when they talk about calculation groups is to reduce the number of measures by centralizing logic in a single place. And in that sense, time intelligence is the paramount example, because if you have to do a lot of time intelligent, then for each measure you'll have as many other measures as many time calculations that they are. So you would have like a sales amount previous year, sales amount year to date, month to date, variance, and so back and so forth. All right. So wouldn't it be nice to have all this logic in one place and then just apply it to different measures? Well, this is what calculations group do. Okay, but that's not all they do. They can do more things. So since they work as a column in a table, and you will see how this works, then you can build like visuals that you would not be able to do that. If you want, a list of measures, and you want to have the current year and previous year value in a small table, even if you have all the measures built, you cannot put them like that in Power BI. Yeah, you cannot build a table and put a measure in one column and one measure in the other column and then one in the other row and so on. So, but with calculation groups, you can do that, and it's a lot of less effort as well. And sometimes you also need to make like a modification to your model so all the measures behave differently. So you have several date columns. Yes, mostly like we have like order date and delivery date, and you have the sales amount. Okay, very good. So for some things, it might be relevant to see the sales amount by the order date. No? So how many orders we had this month. But if you get the money when you deliver the goods, maybe you want to see how much money you get in each month. So you would have to make all the measures again using the delivery date relationship and make all use relationship, use relationship, use relationship. Well, calculation groups, you can also centralize that. And also sometimes you might want to filter 2 dimensions simultaneously. So if you have key accounts, some products for some clients, you cannot put that relationship in the model, but you can put a calculation group that filters as if this relationship was there using the treat as function, for instance, right? So that is very neat. You can do that. Also, in the SQL BI, also show how to set the default value in slicer. So even if there's nothing selected, then you can do as if one of those values were selected. And when the one value is selected, then you can avoid this behavior. And I think that's also very neat. And I'll show different. Oh, yeah, this is something that mostly when we think about calculation groups, we think about the value of the measure. But also you can create another DAX expression that will modify your format string. And also this opens a whole range of possibilities, like showing a different measure value in your data label. So you have bars that show something, and then the label on top shows something else, like the profit or something like that. Well, you have sales, and then on top is like, okay, what's the margin of that sale? You can do that. And well, and there's some more creative things that it can be done. I'm just looking for a good use case. So change the transparency or light level of color measures. You can put, and calculate it, and conditional formatting, you can say, okay, put the color that this measure will tell you, right? And you have your hexadecimal code there. So calculation groups can also work on these measures, and then you can do all sorts of things. You can, break down by red, green, and blue, and then modify each of these levels, go back to the hexadecimal code. I had lots of fun doing that. I'm just struggling to find a place to use that. Anyway, how do we build calculation groups? Okay, this is very important. First of all, this has been available only since July 2020, and is not available through the Power BI desktop UI. Okay, so you have to go through another application, and most likely this is going to be Tabular Enter 2 or 3. Okay, I think you can do that with Visual Studio, but doesn't really get that. It is much more convenient. And okay, some people might be worried, like Bernat, but you said you're going to replace our measures with some other DAX. I don't want to do that. I mean, I want my sales amount. How are you going to do that if you replace my measure? Okay, here's the thing. When in the expressions that in which we define your calculation items, there's a special DAX functions that we can use that refer to the measure that is there in the visual. Okay, so here, if we use selected measure, is this as if we use that real measure in the calculation? I mean, if we have a calculation item which is just selected measure, it will do nothing. It will take the measure and will give it back. Okay, no modification. If you have, I don't know, selected measure +1, then it will add 1 to that measure, and you get the idea, right? But and also for the format string, if you want to see what if you don't want to modify the format string, you should use like selected measure format string. So it will make no change. Okay, and why is this important? Because in calculation items, you nearly always will want to limit the scope of your calculation item. Because as we saw, it replaces any measure that is there. Any measure is a lot. So maybe it's going to be like a dynamic title. You don't want to do like year over your dynamic title is a string and it will cause an error. So always set the the limits of which measure should be affected. And basically you go like if the selected, you can check is selected measure sales amount, then do these transformations. If it's not selected measure, so it's like do nothing. And the same for the format string. If you are doing some year-over-year percentage on a sales amount, then you probably will want to change the format string to percentage. But if if the calculation item is in some other measure, then this is not this should not be happening. So you just return the selected measure format string. Okay, so far so good. Now, and how we use calculation groups? Well, they work like any other filter in Power BI. So you see, we saw at the beginning, it's like a table, and each row is a calculation item. So you can put that column in a matrix, so to say, and you'll see that each column will do one of these transformations. So here, the visual, you can also use through the filter panel and set there, I don't know, if you have the use relationship, you can change it there, like use the order date or use the delivery date. Or even you can use them inside measures. Yeah, you say like calculate sales amount and then use this item from this my calculation group. This also works. As we'll see later, if you mix all these approaches, maybe it gets confusing. So I would try to stay away of this last one if you can. Okay, also important, now that we're there, is like only one calculation item per calculation group can be applied to a scope, otherwise none is applied. Yeah, if you apply a page level, like current year and previous year, okay, and then Power BI says like, well, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. If you put them in columns, then the scopes are different, okay? But if you just at page level for everyone, you put these two calculation items active at the same time, it will be as the same as if there's no calculation item active at all. Okay, and here, well, just remember that measures that are in the format, conditional format, are also inside the calculation item. If it's in the visual, then they will be affected as well if you don't put that scope, so be careful. So that's why another reason to limit the scope of your calculation items. Okay, now let's get to some use case, right? Here, I'll go back to the very first and most important, use case. It's for time intelligence, and then maybe if you want, we can dig deeper in another one. But basically, we want to get from here to here, and you see, we just have our base measures, and we have all the logic here in our calculation group. Okay, so let's jump into Power BI. Let me open the file. Sorry, where is it? Here it is. Okay. It's a very small model based in the Contoso dataset. I just pulled in like things like 3 tables. It's only the sales, the product, and date. So it's extremely simple model. And we'll see how we can work with that. I created these first measures. Also, I'll show you that the standard definition that is shown for time intelligence is not that good. So it has some shortcomings, and we'll go through and how this can be improved. So here, I say date, product, and sales. very easy. And here in sales, we have all this bunch of measures that really don't want. But for instance, let's see, if I want to add like this time intelligence, it would be very difficult, right? So for example, let's just keep the sales amount for a second. Okay, I don't know if this is working. Hello, it's still loading. Okay, looks like it's doing something. That up. Normally it's quite faster than this. I don't know what's going on. Come on. Oh, this is not going good. Why is this happening? This is a very, very simple model. Now, okay, let's hope it's just small. Let's save once, maybe try and settle things. Okay, so here I want to show you, for previous year, maybe you've seen in many, even the Microsoft documentation says, if you want the previous year, just use this definition, yeah? This makes sense, yeah? However, let's see what happens if I put this in my matrix. Okay, so here we don't have previous year. That is fine. However, well, here for January, yeah, probably that is correct. So if we go to the previous year, well, that doesn't matter. So for May, we get the value. Oh, come on. Here, yeah, for January 276, 242, 276, 242. Okay, that is fine. However, if we go through like, oh, what is going on here? So even though we only have data till 2009, the previous year, it shows value in the future, which it doesn't really make sense, right? It's like, okay, I mean, maybe I have this date in my calendar for another reason, like maybe I have forecast somewhere, but I don't really want the measure previous year to show me values in future dates, right? So this is why I was saying that calculation is not that easy, yeah? So, okay, but let's stick to the script. We want to, first of all, see how we can create calculation groups, right? Okay, okay. So, as I was saying, we need tabular editor, okay, to create them. So here we'll open Tabular Editor 3. I recommend it. I use the basic desktop version, which I can afford. And this speeds up your working and also opens this possibility of creating calculation. It's recommendable for many other reasons, but also for calculation groups. Okay, here I have enabled the unsupported actions. Normally it's safe, just save your work. And now, when we go to tables, we can create a calculation group. Okay. So, I don't know, we can here like simple time intelligence. Here we'll use this basic definition, right? And then we'll jump into the more sophisticated ones. Okay, so here that's the name of the table. And here's the name of the column that will contain all the calculation items. In general, I use the same name as the table because otherwise when you put it in the filter panel, it gets a little confusing if you're not changing it, for instance. All calculation groups will have like name. So you need to change it to something, it makes sense. Simple time intelligence. Okay. It's just the name of the column which will store all these definitions. And here we have the calculation items. So here we can type any expression, okay? And use these special functions I was telling you about. So maybe the easiest approach when you create your first calculation groups, especially if you use Tabular Editor 2, which does not have IntelliSense, it would be like to get, I mean, you make one of the calculations, yeah? Say, okay, I have already this one, it works, it does what I want, and then just grab it. Yeah? You just copy it and paste it, okay? And now we want this calculation to happen to any of the measures that are in the scope, okay? First, we'll go the easy way, which applies to all the measures. Okay. And we would go, and then instead of sales amount, we'll use selected measure. And that's it. Now, if I pulled in like total cost, it will calculate the previous year value for total cost, so to say. Okay. And here, and we need to give a name to the calculation item. Huh? So for previous year, for example. Then if we want the current year, how we create the current year? Current year would be just like the select. What happened? We just the selected measure. Yeah, this is always recommended to have an item which does nothing, so you can check if values are changing or not or whatever. So we'll call it this current year. And we could go on, yeah, and create all those other ones. And here, if I created the year over year, then we would like to change the format string. Here you can change from one of the expressions to the other. If you don't put anything, normally it works. I would recommend to use the selected measure format string. Okay, just to say don't change it. And what else? And then how would we go about to limit the scope of this calculation item? Well, maybe, wait, first of all, we'll save this to the model. So you can see step by step how this works. When you do that, and you go back to the, you see, always this yellow banner comes, and then you need to refresh them manually. Yeah. This happens always that you create a new, there is something, there is no, what is going on? I think there is no relationship in the model. Maybe there is none. Let's see what happens. So anyway, when you create a new calculation item, or you create, there is. Okay, it's fine, it was temporary. We can have a look how this calculation group works. You see, it's just a table with 2 rows. You see, ordinal here is -1 because we didn't define it. If we go here and we just if we just drag them a little bit up and down, then it you see now calculation a current year is 0 and previous year is 1. That is useful to use them in matrix because that's the only way you have to sort columns. Okay, and here now, if you change that, you also need to refresh. Let's see. Refresh. Also something that I don't think often about it, but it is important depending on your use case, is that once you activate calculation groups, you cannot create new implicit measures. So you cannot drag like numeric columns in a visual and aggregate them. Yeah, this doesn't work anymore. I mean, they are not recommended for many things, but when you start playing with calculation groups, there's really not much way around them. So if you have already placed them in a visual, they'll just stay there, but they will not be affected by the calculation groups. Yeah, and if you try to drag another one, it's not going to work. Yeah, because calculation groups need to have there's a, wait, I cannot see it now. There's a property of the model, which is discourage implicit measures, yeah, and they require it to be true. If you copy a calculation group to a new model, and you just hit save, and there was no other calculation group there, then it will give an error. It's like, no, you have to change this property to true in order to save the model with a calculation. Yeah, so just do you know. But since Tabular Editor allows you to create many explicit measures very easily, then that should not be a very big problem. Okay, so now, so you see a little bit more how we do that. For previous year, how we go about to limit the scope. As I was telling you, in general, you just need like at least an if statement, no? If, then we'll check if the measure, okay, why is this not working, my keyboard, or what? Wait a minute, now it works. Ta-da! Okay, we need two first. We can go two ways, no? Is selected measure, and then we can put here like sales amount and I don't know. I don't know which one I have. Margin. What's the names? A total cost there. They should be there. You see all this intelligence with Tabular Editor true, you don't get that. So it's a bit more difficult to type in. And okay, so if it's one of these two measures, then we'll do the calculation. Otherwise, don't do anything. So it would be just selected measure. Okay, this is fine. Now this works. Okay. Okay, I don't know. Sometimes this happens, but yeah. Well, here you can format stuff as well. And take it back. So this would work already and would apply only to these two measures. Okay, so let me go back to the model. Okay, what's in here? Okay, now. If we can just test it. So if we go and we make a matrix and we put the date and we put the year as rows. I don't know why this is taking forever. Okay, we have this, and now we could pull in sales amount, values, and which is in the group, and then we'll put also the margin. Okay, we put these two measures. And now let's apply the calculation group. As a column. Here we see that for sales amount, it really calculates the previous year, right? But for margin, it does not. So you get the idea, okay? So it's important to limit the scope and also include all the measures that you want to be affected. Okay, so I'll jump into because you see we have these problems that it creates here in the future, and so and then it's like, oh, then maybe I can hide it somehow. There's these little things that you have to fix, right? But I don't know, maybe you know already about it, but there is a site called daxpatterns.com by the guys of SQL BI, which are the best, and which it already solved these problems for us, right? They already thought about it and they already found a good solution to it. So we don't really have to think about it, okay? We will just go there and learn and apply. But with time calculations, it's like, okay, but you know, previous years normally just the same thing over and over again, right? So if we have to type the measures for each model, it's not so good. So could we bring together these two worlds? Because in that side, it talks only about measure definitions. It doesn't talk about calculation groups. So I thought makes sense to bring the two things together and make a calculation group which creates all these calculations following those rules. And also, while we're at it, I would like to apply that to many models very easily. So I made a script that creates that for us. So I don't know if you're familiar with the tabular editor scripts, but they are really powerful. You can like create batch, create measures, and so on, but you can also create calculation groups. So, and we'll do that right now. So here we have this script. And this script allows you to customize it to fit your model, because in order to hide this value for the future and so on, it needs to know which is the fact table and which is the date column that it should look. And based on that, it creates a measure and a calculated column so that all the calculations work fine. Okay, there are some extra things that maybe will be a bit confusing because there's like other steps in the journey of this script. There's other scripts that create like dynamic labels and even tooltips and stuff like this. But so here for starter, this is very basic. This is just the name of the calculation group and the name of the column, the name of the fact table, which is sales in our case as well. The order date is also there. I think it's hidden, but here it is, order date. And then what's the name of the date table? So it's date. The date column is also date. And here, well, the year here is requested for this, for the dynamic level things, which I'm not really gonna get into today. And this is the two measures and calculated column that are included in the daxpatterns.com definitions. So we'll create them for you. And now for the affected measures, I realized that when you have a lot of calculation items, first of all, that's something that is very repetitive, right? So for each calculation item, for value and for format string, you have to put like this box around it. Like, is this measure one of these? No, okay. So, and you do it for both, for all calculation items. So it's a lot of expressions. So I thought, well, I don't know. Now I have these three measures that I want affected by the calculation group. But what happens if I create another measure? I mean, as it is, I would have to go to all these expressions and add my measure there. And I didn't like that. So what I do is I create a hidden calculated table, which just includes the name of all these measures that I want to be affected. And then I put all the measures there, all the names there. And if I need another measure to be affected by the calculation group, well, I can just change the definition of the calculated table and add one more name. And then automatically the calculation group will work fine. Okay. And here, well, here it creates a couple of measures that they deal basically with the calculation dynamic label. So because you see the calculation group, you see the calculation item is called PY for previous year. But then if you, in your time slicer, you have 2009, then you have to, okay, 2009 and then PY, okay, that's going to be 2008. So in some settings, it might not be very clear what is it. Or I don't know, year over year, okay, which over which. So in this this dynamic, these measures will take the, the filter scope and create a string that explains really what is this calculation item about, which years is it comparing, and so on. And this is like a flag thing that I add to, well, because sometimes when you're working with more than one calculation group, you want to modify the calculation item, the format string, but only if there's no other model calculation group before changing it. So well, I add something that's like, hey, I change it, so don't change it again. Anyway, so here you would change it up till here and see if you want to change anything else. You just modify it, and then you just execute it. Okay, so once you have changed all these variables, you just click play. Oh, okay, sorry, I forgot about it. I have to say which measures I do want, at least one, yeah? So in order to create the table and so on. So we can make the test. We'll just do the same thing. We'll create, I select the margin and the sales amount, yeah? If the list is too long and you don't want to select them, you can also type here as an array. Yeah, but you can also select here if you want. Now we play. Okay, and now it worked. Here we can see we have this time intelligence, and we have all these calculation items which we can look here. And you see I changed the if for a switch because I have like two cases. And here is where I do my check. Well, maybe current year is not the best. So for previous year, I check if the selected measure name is in the values of this table. And if so, then it does this a bit more complicated expression, which takes in account if there's data for that date and before checking for the previous year and so on. But this is exactly the definition that is on the daxparents.com. And here it does another calculation in case the measure is this other one. Yeah, it returns like the year. You see it goes to the calendar, it takes a year, and then it's like, okay, when you're doing previous year, then this label, when affected by the calculation group, will show which year are we talking about when we say previous year. Okay, and if it's neither of those two, just return selected measure as usual. Okay, and maybe interesting here for the percentage one, if we go to the format string, you see by default it would go like this. So if the selected measure is one of these, then just overwrite whatever format string it has and put this percentage one. Yeah. Here, as I complicated that with further calculation groups, then I say, oh, well, careful. If you find this in the format string, then do nothing. This is the flag like, oh, I already changed the format string, don't change it again. If you don't find that, then you are the first one to change the format string, so go ahead and overwrite. Okay. And here is another way to put that label in case of as a format string, but this is a bit more complex use case, and I don't think you have to worry too much about it. So let's save that, see if it works. Let's go back to the model. Now we have a new calculation group, so we need to apply it. Okay, is it there? Here we can go very quickly to this hidden table. You see by default it's hidden, and you will not see it unless you select to see hidden items. But you see we have the names here. Very convenient. So if I wanted to add another one, I would just comma, put the name, and that's it. All the calculation items that we see here, which are, we don't see anything here. We have to go here. You have 8, but remember that we should have to change like 2 expressions, so that would make 16 changes. So instead of making 16 changes, we make just 1 here, and that is fine. And okay, let's test it. Here I have some setting already. Let's see if we bring this time intelligence. Here I changed the name. It is time calculation, but okay. And we bring it here. These effects, wait, I want to close this. Okay, can you see anything? No, it's too small. Okay, here if I select like previous year, boom, see it will change this for me. This is not affecting here. Here I think it's better to just bring wait a minute. We'll bring the time calculation on the column. Okay. And here, of course, we can, this is not affecting the table, but it's affecting the chart. And here we could choose to have like, so you see I have this, but once I select 2, oh, it returns the normal one, yeah? The current year is like doing nothing, right? So you have like 2 different ones. It returns me the current year. This is what we were selling. Like you cannot apply more than one calculation item at once. Yeah. However, if we come here and we put the time calculation as legend, now of course it creates all of them. But if we just select year over year, let's put year today, previous year today. We can have these 2, or current year versus previous year. This is a bit better. Of course, we had to work with data labels and stuff, but at least you get the idea that you can do that. Okay. And here we can also do something which I was telling you about, is if we change the title of this chart, where is it, title, and we change it, wait, value, oh, here this has nothing. You see this label has no, this is a measure, but it's really like a placeholder, it contains nothing. So anything that, it will come from the calculation group. So if I come here and say, I want the title to be dynamic, and this is label as here. This is important that the base measure, so it's a string, otherwise you cannot select. But it doesn't really matter because the whole content, it will be replaced. Wait, did this work? Okay, yeah, you see, 2009 versus 2008, we're filtering by 2009, and this gives you some idea, okay? But this is not changing really, is it? Is that the previous year? There is something weird going on here, huh? This is fine. I don't know, these two, for some reason, are not really working correctly. We should have to dig into it and see what is going on. It's weird because in dynamic labels, that worked perfect. Anyway, you get the idea that something can be reached like that. And also, most important, you see that you can create a very good time intelligence group just by executing a script which I have available in my GitHub. So it won't cost you anything. And you can extend it, of course. I only did it for the basic calculations, but if you want like date, month to date and all those, you can at least see the code and get some inspiration from it. I would like to, so basically this is what we achieve now. I could delete now all these other measures because I don't need them anymore. And there's a couple more things I would like to talk about before my time runs out, which is what happens when we have more than one calculation group, okay? So remember that I talked, wait, are you saying it correctly? No, something is going, oh, sorry, there is something odd. Now, is this working fine now? Yeah. Do you see the whole thing? I hope so. So wait, before that, when there's more than one calculation group, yeah, you remember I talked that calculation items are like DAX jackets. So the higher the number, yeah, the highest number would be like the last jacket, but it's like they put first the last jacket and then it keeps like putting jackets inside it if there are other calculation groups. Yeah, maybe it's not the best image, but you see if we have this and this has a group calculation group precedence of 2 and this has precedence of 1, you see that the 2 will be like outside and then the 1 will be like inside. Yeah, you don't need to fill all the precedence numbers contiguously. This could be like 200 and it's 100, doesn't matter. But the order in which they are applied is in this one. But each of the new groups will like replace the inside of the previous one. Like it will keep growing from the inside. Yeah. But having only this image, it already will help you to see how one calculation group interacts with the other and so on. If you get into that, which is complex. Let me tell you that. And finally, let's put some good practices, which is keep it simple, yeah, because you don't really get to see the final expression, yeah, of what is going on. So maybe you have like 3 calculation groups and a measure thrown in, and then there's a blank. There should not be blank, and it's like, oh, but I want to see why it's blank. Well, not so easy, not so easy. So go step by step and don't overcomplicate things. Yeah. Also, as I already said and explained how to, is limit the scope. So only some measures, because otherwise, yeah, you'll have like visuals breaking because they are trying to like subtract one title from another title. That doesn't work. Also, here, you could theoretically, you can use like create a new measure, which is like, yeah, well, show that real quick. So if I go to here, I don't know why it would do that, but I could create a new measure and say, well, sales amount previous year, which will be calculate sales amount, and then go time intelligence, time calculation equal previous year. This works too, but I think it complicates things later. If you put that together, oh, I cannot put this name. Okay, but yeah. So this is also possible, but what I'm telling here is to not mix this with other calculation groups coming from the filter pane and stuff like this, because it's very difficult to know what is going on finally there. So here I say, if you can avoid creating these measures, avoid it. Yeah. And this is also something I didn't know before I created that script, and now it's being solved. But this that I showed you here, in theory, you could also use that to define another calculation group, a calculation item. Yeah, if you want to make the year over year, then you could say, okay, and first variable is like a selected measure, and then previous year value, and then use that item to calculate the new item. But this is what is called sideways recursion. And it's limited to one step, but it's much better if you avoid it altogether, so you don't get into this possible problem. Yeah, so in the script, what I do instead of doing that is like, since I have the definitions in variables of the C# script, I just reuse the variable, and it's so much easier. Okay, so that being said, here you have all the ways to connect with me. I would be very happy to do that with you all. Here's my Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. I also post some stuff in LinkedIn, especially when I post something new on my blog. I have a YouTube channel, but I don't have enough subscribers yet to have a nice URL. Please come and subscribe. And here you will find the script for time intelligence and other stuff that I've done. So go grab it. It's all yours. Okay. I don't know. Now I would really like to see your feedback and questions and so on. So please don't hesitate. And maybe there's some questions in the chat on YouTube. I don't know. Just let me know as well.
Sure, sure, Bernat. It was a really nice session. And can you please post all of this link into chat window, please? Because
Yes.
on YouTube, many people are asking about the script code. So many people are very impressed with this usage of calculation group, and they wanted to try. So I will post the same link.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, here it comes. Oh, wait. Let's do like this, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Prince, you can go with the question and answer thing. Meantime, I will also check YouTube if there is any question on that part. Just a minute. I just shared your link onto YouTube Live button. Meantime, from YouTube Live, actually, let me just tell you the analytics that you were earlier talking about. Around 50 plus people joined throughout the session with us, and yeah, like people really appreciated the session over here. So I think you explained it in a very good manner that on YouTube Live actually we don't have
Thank
any
you.
session. And on Teams, if someone has any question, feel free to ask your question by unmuting yourself, and it will definitely be happy to answer your question.
I see Zidra joined from Barcelona as well. So glad to see him.
Mostly, yeah, Bernat. It was a very clear and neatly organized session that you explained everything from start to end in a very good manner. I just wanted to add a few things here, like for calculation group, as you mentioned at very beginning, for Power BI desktop, we don't have that capability natively. So basically, we can go with this particular DAX Studio, means the Visual Studio.
Tabular.
Yes, exactly. So, are there any another tool on which using we can perform calculation group, or is it the only option, in order to achieve that?
I think I saw once Marco Russo show that you can actually do that with Visual Studio. I never tried to do that, but I mean, this is something that also exists in analysis services. So you can do that, but well, this is something more general about Tabular Editor, is that you can type all the changes that you want to do to the model and then save them all at once. While if you work with Power BI, even in case it allowed you to create calculation groups, it's like at every step, it's synchronizing with the model, checking that everything is okay. And that's why it takes you like 10 seconds sometimes like to create a new measure. Well, this does not happen in Tabular Editor. It just works there. And Visual Studio works the same way as Power BI Desktop. So each step takes some time and it's very slow. So for this other reason, I would recommend to stick with Tabular Editor, either 2 or 3. They're both fine. I mean, they have the same functionality. They just don't have this feature that is that IntelliSense that you only get in Tabular Editor 3.
Okay, sounds good. So I think we covered almost everything. Someone raised their hand in the Teams. Maybe not sure. I just saw some. Yeah.
Oh, Kher. I know this guy.
Yeah, Abhishek.
Hey Bernat, Abhishek this side. Yeah.
Good.
So
Thank you.
I wanted to ask something. You mentioned that calculation group can affect each measure that we are using in our report, right? In our
Yes.
visual. So suppose, can I create a calculation item which do a conditional formatting? Suppose there's a bar chart. I want to create a standard calculation item which highlight the top two with dark blue color, and then others stay some light blue color, and then use this pattern again and again in different reports.
Yeah, you can do that. However, let me think. I did once that I think there was like a challenge and this something Wednesday challenge or something like that, and it went around that, and I helped Susan Bays on Twitter because she was struggling with it, and the solution I came out with was, because they mixed that with even a replacement measure. So there was first, they replaced the measure and then they wanted like format string. So here what I did is create 2 different measures, and then one for the conditional formatting and one just for the value. So, and then you apply the replacement, and then you check the value of that selected measure that you have on your scope, check it towards what would be the value if you remove some filter, and then if it's the maximum, then you provide the hexadecimal code for the color, right? And otherwise you you can provide another one, something like this. So it can be done, yes. And if you want further detail, I can send you that file and see.
Sure. Thank you. And one more question I had,
yes.
like you have used calculation groups for around 7 to 8 months now. So do you see any limitation, like any feature that you would like that come in this, and one more feature that comes in and it would be more helpful? Already calculation are saving us most the time, but anything else that you are expecting from them?
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, I think there is a limitation. Comes more from the Power BI desktop itself. So I would like to play a lot more with the colors. But the thing is that in Power BI you can only do conditional formatting when you don't have any legend. Yeah, because otherwise the colors are already specified by absolute categories, no? And then so I would like, I don't know, some way to access the color that has been assigned from the visual and then play with that. In the same way that we can get to the select the measure format string and select the measure name, we can get these two metadata. I don't know, maybe we can get other metadata from the measure and then be able to do calculation items based on that. Yeah, there is one thing I didn't mention, is that you can use the calculation item active inside your calculation. So, and then you can like create many calculation items which are exactly the same expression, but because they use the calculation item name, using just selected value, it's no big deal, but selected value of that color. Since there's only one value active, you get the value, you get the name of the calculation item, and then you can do like different things. So if I made a calculation group, which is like transparency, to change the transparency of a hexadecimal color, and all the calculation items are the same, but since the name is like 90% transparent, 80% transparent, and so on, what it does to the color is different. That has some potential. But it would be nice also if you could like go and return the display folder name, for example, or stuff like that. That would be cool as well.
Right.
All right. Thank you so much.
Syntax variables. Now, this is important. Calculation groups only work on measures. You cannot pass a variable. It doesn't work. I tried to. It doesn't work. So they only work with measures. You cannot even put calculate thing inside that. It must be a measure first.
Okay, sounds good. And as you mentioned, Bernat, like we can only use measures. So in measures, actually, apart from measures, a variable can't work on that. Like let's say I have a temporary variable created to grab some value and pass that into any other DEX measure. Is that something which is possible or not?
No. I mean, if you say calculate and then you put a value, even if the calculation item is selected measure +1, if you in your calculation you say calculate and then you put a variable which contains, I don't know, a 0, and then you put and then use this calculation item, this doesn't work.
Okay.
It's unfortunate because that would it would be like a custom DAX function almost, right? But there is this limitation, so you can get around it, I guess. You can just go and then, I don't know, apply, and then, well, it would be like if you have all the possible values in a table, then you can go and filter that table, and then your measure will have the value that you want, and it's still a measure, so you could then add your calculation on top of that. But it gets complicated, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thanks a lot. All right. Someone is still typing something in the chat window, so let the question comes up. And yeah, at last we have a good amount of question and very important question, so that user can interact more and they clearly listen to your session. So yeah, that's really great.
Yeah, I really appreciate all these questions. Very nice, thank you. Yeah. I don't know if it's coming in. Otherwise, I mean, you can always really ping me on Twitter or so, because The script language you showed was C#. Yes, it is. But it's a C#. It's a kind of a modified C# because it already has like some functionality, some functions already like loaded in that are like I think it calls like the TOM wrapper library. So the TOM is like Tabular Object Model, which is a standard from Microsoft. And then Daniel Oettinger developed this other library which has extra methods to work with the Tabular Object Model. And then you have all this add calculation group and stuff like that. But I would recommend you to first download some scripts from myself or other people, have a look at them, and just copy. It's not super difficult if you're familiar with programming in a language.
All right, sounds good. All right, so I think we covered almost every question. If anyone has any other questions still, we can go with. And otherwise, I think we are good. So, Bernat, apart from all of these things, do you want to add anything else as a last word for this session?
No, just go and experiment. There's a lot of potential, and I always come up with new ideas. Sometimes when I'm not working with Power BI, maybe I'm cooking or something, like, oh, I could do that with calculation group. So cool. They open a lot of doors that otherwise would be closed.
All right. Thank you so much. So with that, I think we are good to end this particular session. So you guys have explained very good question to Bernat, and we have learned a very interesting concept about calculation group. So with this, we are almost about to end this session, and next month we will come up with some another cool and great session. So stay tuned with us until next month. And with this, I would like to thank Bernat for your most valuable time in this morning. And obviously, it's Saturday. So wishing you a very happy weekend and have a great day ahead.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.